The carburetor wasn't cooperating, but then again, neither was my marriage. 2 in the morning, grease under my fingernails, and the sound of Jovie's BMW pulling into our driveway after another late client meeting. I'd been rebuilding engines for 15 years, and I could spot a lie faster than a blown gasket. "Trent?" Her voice echoed through the house as I worked in my basement workshop. "You still awake?" "Down here," I called back, not bothering to look up from the Chevy small block I was rebuilding. "How were those market trends tonight?" The pause lasted 3 seconds too long. In my line of work, timing is everything. 3 seconds is the difference between a smooth idle and an engine that sputters and quits. Jovie appeared at the top of the basement stairs, still in her real estate blazer, but with her hair messed up in a way that suggested more than just a long day at the office. She was 38, still attractive in that polished, professional way that had caught my attention 12 years ago when she sold me this row house. "You know how these luxury listings are," she said, descending the wooden steps. "The Pemberton estate won't sell itself." I finally looked up, wiping my hands on a shop rag. Funny thing about the Pemberton place, I drove past it around 9 tonight on my way back from picking up parts. Looked pretty dark for an active showing. Her expression flickered, just for a moment, but I caught it, like an engine missing on one cylinder, barely noticeable unless you knew what to listen for. "We were at the downtown office reviewing comps," she said quickly. "Market analysis, you know." "Right." I turned back to the engine, threading a bolt into the intake manifold. "Must have been some analysis. You've got lipstick on your collar, and unless you've started wearing a different shade, I'd say someone else left their mark." The basement went quiet, except for the hum of my fluorescent work lights. I could feel her staring at me, probably calculating her next move. Jovie always was good at math. "I don't know what you're implying," she said finally. "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Lipstick that isn't yours, perfume I don't recognize, and your smartwatch has been buzzing with messages from someone listed as B all evening." I heard her sharp intake of breath. "You've been spying on me?" "Doesn't take much spying when you leave your watch on the kitchen counter." I set down my wrench and faced her fully. "Want to tell me who B is, or should I guess? My money's on Baxter Lowell." The color drained from her face, and I knew I'd hit the target. Baxter Lowell, the flashy real estate developer who'd been sniffing around Jovie's office for the past 6 months, talking about joint ventures and exclusive listings. Apparently they'd found something exclusive to work on together. "This is ridiculous," she said, but her voice had lost its confident edge. "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" I reached into my back pocket and pulled out a crumpled Starbucks receipt I'd found in her car earlier. Funny thing, this receipt shows 2 drinks ordered at the same time yesterday. 2 specialty lattes. But you don't drink lattes, Jovie. You haven't touched coffee in 3 years because of your acid reflux. She stared at the receipt like it was a snake about to strike. "So either you've developed a sudden taste for overpriced coffee, or you were buying drinks for someone else. Someone whose tastes you know well enough to order for them." "I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You're good with explanations. Like how you explained working late every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 2 months. Or how you explained needing to attend all those weekend real estate seminars in the city." I walked over to my workbench and picked up a small device that looked like a phone charger. "This is a GPS tracker. Darren Patel, you remember D, the IT guy at the garage, he helped me install it in your car last week." Jovie's eyes went wide. "You tracked me?" "I tracked my car, the one that's registered in my name with insurance I pay for." I connected the device to my phone and showed her the screen. "Want to guess where you've been spending your Tuesday and Thursday evenings? Hint, it's not the Pemberton estate." The map showed a clear pattern of visits to Baxter's luxury condo complex on the north side of town. The same complex where he'd been developing high-end units for wealthy buyers. "You're insane," she whispered. "No, I'm thorough. It's what makes me good at rebuilding engines. You have to examine every component, test every connection, make sure nothing's loose or misfiring. I pocketed my phone. Speaking of loose connections, you might want to be more careful about where you leave your backup phone. Her face went white. What backup phone? The one hidden in your purse. The one with all those interesting text messages and photos. I smiled without humor. Turns out Dee is pretty good with mobile forensics too. Amazing what you can learn when you put your mind to it. Jovie turned and ran up the stairs. I heard her heels clicking rapidly across the kitchen floor, then the sound of her rummaging through her purse. A moment later, she let out a string of words that would have made my Marine buddy Jace proud. I went back to my engine work. The carburetor was starting to make sense now. Sometimes you had to take things apart completely before you could understand how they were supposed to work. 20 minutes later, I heard Jovie's car start up and pull out of the driveway. She was probably going to warn Baxter that their little secret was out. Or maybe she was just running to figure out her next move. Either way, I had work to do. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos Dee had recovered from Jovie's secret device. The images were definitely not real estate related, unless Baxter was planning to market his bedroom as a luxury showing space. I forwarded the most damaging messages to my own phone, then carefully returned Jovie's backup device to exactly where I'd found it in her purse. She'd never know I'd accessed it until I was ready for her to know. My phone buzzed with a text from Jace. "You still up? Got some interesting intel from my buddy at the hotel bar downtown." I typed back, "What kind of intel?" "The kind that involves your wife and that pretty boy developer. They've been regular customers at the Marriott Lounge, Tuesday and Thursday nights, like clockwork. Bartender says they always get the same corner booth." I stared at the message for a long moment. So it wasn't just the condo visits. They'd been making a public show of their affair, probably thinking they were being discreet by meeting at an upscale hotel bar instead of some dive where locals might recognize them. The arrogance of it made my jaw clench. They weren't just cheating. They were flaunting it, confident that I was too stupid or too trusting to figure it out. I typed back to Jace, "Thanks for the heads up. We need to talk tomorrow." "You got it, brother. And Trent, whatever you're planning, count me in." I set the phone down and looked around my workshop. This basement had been my sanctuary for 12 years, the place where I could work with my hands and think clearly. The walls were lined with tools I'd collected over 2 decades as a mechanic and custom car builder. Every wrench, every socket, every specialty tool had its place and purpose. Tomorrow, I'd start putting those tools to a different use. I picked up the carburetor and examined it under the bright work light. The problem was obvious now, a clogged jet that had been restricting fuel flow. Easy to fix once you knew what you were looking for. Some problems required more creative solutions. Jovie came home the next morning looking like she'd spent the night planning a defense strategy. She found me in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the local paper's real estate section. "We need to talk," she announced, still wearing yesterday's clothes. "Sure." I didn't look up from the paper. "I see Baxter's new development got another favorable mention. Luxury living for discerning buyers. Must be nice having connections at the paper." She sat down across from me at our small dining table. "Trent, about last night?" "What about it?" "You can't just spy on me and make accusations. It's not healthy for our marriage." I finally looked at her. "Our marriage stopped being healthy the moment you started having Tuesday and Thursday night meetings at the Marriott Lounge." Her composure cracked slightly. "How did you know about that too?" "Jovie, I've been rebuilding engines since I was 16. You learn to pay attention to patterns, to notice when something doesn't fit." I folded the newspaper and set it aside. "You want to have this conversation? Fine. But let's be honest about what we're discussing." "I made a mistake," she said quickly. "It was just, things between us have been strained and Baxter was there and—" "How long?" "What?" "How long has this been going on? And don't lie to me. I've got enough evidence to piece together a timeline, but I'd rather hear it from you." She stared at her hands. 3 months. 3 months. I repeated the words slowly. 3 months of lies. 3 months of pretending to work late while you were with him. 3 months of coming home and kissing me goodnight after you'd been with another man. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. How was it supposed to happen? You were going to leave me for him eventually, right? This was just the transition period where you got to have both of us. Jovie's phone buzzed on the table. The caller ID showed Baxter Lowell. Aren't you going to answer that? I asked. He's probably worried about you after last night. She declined the call. Trent, we can work through this. Marriage counseling. Maybe some time apart to think. Time apart sounds good. I stood up and walked to the kitchen counter, where I'd left a manila folder. In fact, I've already started the process. I handed her the folder. Inside were photocopies of bank statements, property records, and a detailed financial inventory I'd been quietly assembling for the past week. What is this? Insurance. See, while you were busy with your Tuesday and Thursday night meetings, I was doing some research of my own. Turns out Maryland is an equitable distribution state, which means marital assets get divided fairly in a divorce. Her face went pale as she flipped through the documents. But here's the interesting part, I continued. I've been keeping very careful records of our finances. Every deposit, every withdrawal, every expenditure, including some recent charges on our joint credit card that I don't remember authorizing. She found the highlighted credit card statements. You can't use these against me. Can I? $500 at Victoria's Secret last month. Interesting, since you haven't bought lingerie in 2 years. Dinner for 2 at Romano's, our anniversary restaurant, except it wasn't our anniversary, and I was working late that night. I sat back down across from her. Want me to keep going? This is blackmail. No, this is documentation. There's a difference. My phone rang. Jace's name appeared on the screen. Excuse me for a minute. I answered the call. Hey, Jay. Trent, you need to get down to the garage. We've got a situation. What kind of situation? The kind where your wife's boyfriend just pulled up in his fancy Mercedes and is asking questions about you. I looked at Jovie, who was still staring at the financial documents. I'll be right there. I hung up and grabbed my keys. We'll continue this conversation later. Right now, I need to go have a chat with your boyfriend. Trent, don't do anything stupid. Stupid? Like having an affair and thinking I wouldn't notice? I paused at the kitchen door. By the way, you might want to check your car this morning. I noticed it was making some unusual noises when you came home. Might be a fuel system problem. I left her sitting at the table and drove to Warren Custom Motors, the garage I co-owned with Jace. It was a small operation, 6 bays, a paint booth, and a reputation for quality work that kept us busy with classic car restorations and custom builds. Baxter's silver Mercedes was parked in front of the main office, looking out of place among the muscle cars and vintage trucks that usually occupied our lot. I found Jace in the main bay, pretending to work on a '67 Camaro while keeping an eye on the office. He was 42, built like the Marine he'd been for 8 years, and had the kind of loyalty that made him the best business partner a man could ask for. He's been here for 10 minutes, Jace said quietly. Asking questions about your financial situation, whether the business is profitable, that kind of thing. Is he now? Gets better. He's also asking about the property records for this place, like he's thinking about making an offer. I smiled. Well, let's go see what Mr. Lowell wants. Baxter was in the office, talking to our secretary, Maria, when I walked in. He was 35, maybe 6 feet tall, with the kind of artificially perfect appearance that came from expensive haircuts and designer suits. He looked like he'd stepped out of a real estate brochure. Mr. Ardell, he said, extending his hand. Baxter Lowell. I don't think we've been formally introduced. I looked at his hand but didn't shake it. I know who you are. I was hoping we could have a conversation about Jovie. What about her? He glanced around the garage, taking in the organized chaos of tools and car parts. Perhaps we could speak privately? This is private enough. Maria, would you mind giving us a few minutes? Maria nodded and left the office. Jace remained in the doorway, arms crossed, looking like a bouncer at an exclusive club. Mr. Ardell, Baxter began, I want you to know that what happened between Jovie and me wasn't planned. Sometimes these things just develop naturally. Naturally, I repeated, like rust on unprotected metal. I'm trying to be civilized about this. Civilized. I sat down behind my desk and leaned back in my chair. You're having an affair with my wife, and you want to be civilized about it. That's rich. Look, I know this is difficult, but Jovie and I have developed genuine feelings for each other. We're both adults, and we think it would be best for everyone if we handled this maturely. Maturely? I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a manila envelope. You mean like keeping detailed records of your hotel visits? Or maybe like the photos I have of you two in the parking garage behind Romano's restaurant? Baxter's confident expression faltered. What photos? The ones my friend Dee took last Thursday night when you thought you were having a private moment. I slid a printed photograph across the desk. Nice car, by the way, though you might want to be more careful about where you park it. The photo showed Baxter and Jovie in an intimate embrace next to his Mercedes. Dee had used a telephoto lens, so the image was crystal clear. You've been following us? I've been protecting my interests. See, when you've been married for 12 years and your wife suddenly starts working late every Tuesday and Thursday, you pay attention. When she starts buying lingerie and charging romantic dinners to your joint credit card, you investigate. I pulled out my phone and opened the GPS tracking app. Want to see where your car has been for the past 2 weeks? It's amazing what you can learn with a simple magnetic tracker. Baxter stared at the phone screen, watching the trail of locations that mapped out his affair with my wife. What do you want? He asked finally. That's the wrong question. The right question is, what are you going to do when this all becomes public knowledge? Public knowledge? Oh, you didn't think this would stay private, did you? See, this is a small city. People talk. And when they find out that the rising star of luxury real estate development has been having an affair with a married woman, well, I shrugged. Reputations have been built on less and destroyed by more. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. About consequences. About the difference between thinking you're smart and actually being smart. I stood up and walked around the desk. You thought you were clever, meeting at upscale places using discreet locations, but you forgot something important. What's that? I fix things for a living, and when something's broken, I don't just patch it up. I take it apart, figure out what went wrong, and rebuild it properly. I stopped directly in front of him. Right now, my marriage is broken, and I'm in the process of figuring out how to fix it. By threatening me? By removing the problem. I smiled. Tell me, Baxter, how's your development business? I hear you've got several projects in the works. Would be a shame if potential investors started hearing rumors about your personal life. His face went red. You can't what? Can't tell the truth? Can't share factual information about your activities? I walked back to my desk and sat down. I'm not threatening anything. I'm just pointing out that actions have consequences. Jovie won't let you do this. Jovie doesn't have a choice. See, she's been using marital assets to fund your little romance. Joint credit cards, shared bank accounts. In Maryland, that's called dissipation of marital assets. Courts don't look favorably on that kind of behavior. I opened another folder and showed him copies of credit card statements and bank records. 3 months of hotel bills, restaurant charges, gifts purchased with money that legally belongs to both of us. A good divorce attorney could have a field day with this. Baxter's confidence was completely gone now. What do you want from me? I want you to understand something. You thought you were taking advantage of a situation, maybe even thought you were rescuing Jovie from an unhappy marriage. But what you actually did was declare war on someone who knows how to fight back. I stood up and walked to the office window, looking out at his Mercedes. Nice car, German engineering, quality craftsmanship, but even the best machines break down when they're not properly maintained. If you touch my car? Touch your car? Why would I do that? I turned back to him. Though you might want to have it serviced soon. I noticed it was running a little rough when you pulled in. Might be a fuel system issue. Baxter looked confused, then alarmed. What did you do? Nothing you can prove, but you might want to check your gas tank. Sometimes sugar gets mixed in by accident. Terrible thing when that happens. His eyes went wide. You put sugar in my gas tank? Did I? That would be vandalism, wouldn't it? A crime. And I'm a law-abiding citizen. I smiled. Of course, sugar doesn't actually damage engines the way people think. That's just an urban legend. What really causes problems is water in the fuel system, or the wrong octane rating, or contaminated gasoline. Baxter ran for the door. Through the window, I watched him frantically examine his car, checking under the hood and around the fuel door. After a few minutes, he got in and tried to start it. The engine turned over but wouldn't catch. He tried again, pumping the gas pedal. Nothing. Jace appeared beside me at the window. What did you actually do to his car? Disconnected the fuel pump relay. 30-second job, completely reversible, no permanent damage. I watched Baxter frantically trying to restart the Mercedes. But he doesn't know that. You're evil. No, I'm thorough. There's a difference. Baxter finally gave up and called for a tow truck. While he waited, he kept looking toward the garage office, probably wondering what other surprises I had in store for him. My phone rang. Jovie's name appeared on the screen. Let me guess, I said when I answered. Your car won't start either. What did you do to it? Nothing permanent, just a minor fuel system adjustment. Should be running fine in a few hours. You can't do this, Trent. You can't sabotage our cars and threaten Baxter. I haven't threatened anyone, and I haven't sabotaged anything. I've simply made some mechanical adjustments to vehicles that I have legal access to. I watched the tow truck arrive for Baxter's Mercedes. By the way, you might want to call Baxter. He seems to be having some transportation difficulties. I hung up and turned to Jace. Phase 1 complete. What's Phase 2? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos Dee had recovered from Jovie's secret device. Phase 2 is when things get interesting. The next morning, I drove to Jovie's real estate office with a cardboard box in the back of my truck. The box contained every gift I'd ever given her, every photo of us together, and a few items she'd probably forgotten she owned. Pemberton Luxury Real Estate occupied the ground floor of a renovated Victorian house on Main Street. Large windows displayed glossy photos of million-dollar properties, and the interior was all white walls and modern furniture designed to impress wealthy clients. I walked in carrying the box like I was making a delivery. The receptionist, a young woman named Ashley, who'd always been friendly when I'd picked up Jovie for lunch, looked confused. Hi, Mr. Ardell. Is Jovie expecting you? Not exactly. I'm just returning some things that belong to her. Oh. Ashley glanced toward the back of the office, where I could see Jovie through the glass wall of the conference room. She was in a meeting with 3 other agents, including her best friend, Lauren Carter. Lauren was a divorce attorney who also dabbled in real estate. She was 42, sharp as a blade, and had never liked me. The feeling was mutual. I'll just leave this on her desk, I said, walking past Ashley before she could object. Jovie's desk was in an open area near the conference room. I set the box down carefully, making sure the contents were visible to anyone who walked by. On top were framed photos of our wedding day. Underneath were more personal items. I was arranging the contents when Jovie noticed me through the conference room glass. Her face went white, and she excused herself from the meeting. What are you doing here? She demanded in a loud whisper. Returning your things. I figured you'd want them back. She looked into the box and saw the wedding photos, jewelry I'd given her, and underneath those items, printouts of text messages from her secret phone. "You can't bring that here," she hissed. "Why not? They're your belongings." I picked up one of the text message printouts. "Though I have to say, some of your correspondence is pretty interesting, very detailed." Lauren Carter appeared at Jovie's shoulder. "Mr. Ardell, you need to leave. This is harassment." "Harassment? I'm returning personal property to my wife. How is that harassment?" "You're creating a disturbance in a professional environment." I looked around the office. Ashley was pretending to work while obviously listening to our conversation. 2 other agents had stopped what they were doing to watch the drama unfold. "You're right," I said. "This is a professional environment. People here should be able to trust their colleagues to maintain professional standards." I picked up another printout from the box. "For instance, when someone uses company resources to conduct personal business, that reflects poorly on the entire organization." Jovie grabbed for the papers, but I held them out of reach. "What kind of personal business?" Lauren asked, despite herself. "Oh, personal meetings during work hours, using the company phone to arrange private appointments, that sort of thing." I handed Lauren one of the printouts. "Though I suppose some personal business is more personal than others." Lauren scanned the document, and her expression changed from annoyed to shocked. The text message was explicit enough to make her point clear without being graphic enough to cause legal problems. "Where did you get this?" Lauren demanded. "From my wife's phone, the one she thought I didn't know about." I smiled at Jovie. Amazing what people put in writing these days. By now, the entire office was listening. Ashley had given up any pretense of working, and the other agents were openly staring. "Everyone back to work," Jovie said loudly. "This is a private matter." "Is it?" I asked. "Because some of these messages mention using this office for meetings with clients, specifically meetings with Baxter Lowell to discuss joint ventures and exclusive arrangements." I pulled out another printout and read from it. "Tuesday, 3 p.m., your office. Make sure we have privacy for our negotiation." I looked up at the room full of people. "Sounds like business to me." Lauren grabbed the paper from my hand. "This conversation is over. You need to leave immediately, or I'm calling the police." "On what grounds?" "I'm returning personal property to my wife and discussing business arrangements that apparently took place in this office." I started packing the items back into the box. "But you're right, I should go. I have other deliveries to make." "Other deliveries?" Jovie asked. "Oh, yes. See, when you find out your wife is having an affair, you want to make sure all the relevant parties are properly informed." I hefted the box. "Baxter should get copies of these messages too, don't you think? And maybe your boss, since some of this activity apparently happened on company time." "You wouldn't," Lauren said. "Wouldn't I? I'm just sharing factual information. Public service, really." I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "Oh, and Jovie, you might want to check the joint bank accounts today. I made some withdrawals yesterday. Nothing illegal, just moving my portion of our assets into a separate account, for safekeeping." The office went completely silent. I could see the wheels turning in Lauren's head as she realized the implications. "How much did you withdraw?" she asked. "All of it. Every account where my name appears as a joint holder." I smiled. Amazing how much paperwork you can accomplish when you put your mind to it. I left them standing there and drove straight to Baxter's office, which was located in a gleaming new building on the other side of town. His company, Lowell Development, occupied the entire top floor. The receptionist was a polished woman in her 50s who looked like she'd stepped out of a corporate magazine. "Do you have an appointment with Mr. Lowell?" "Not exactly, but I think he'll want to see me." I handed her my business card. "Tell him Trent Ardell is here to discuss some mutual interests." 5 minutes later, I was sitting in Baxter's corner office, looking out at a view of the city skyline. The office was designed to intimidate. Massive desk, expensive art, leather furniture that probably cost more than I made in a month. Baxter looked like he hadn't slept well. "What do you want, Ardell?" "To share some information with you." I pulled out a folder containing copies of the same documents I'd shown Jovie. "I thought you should know what you're getting involved in." "I already know about your marriage problems." "Do you? Because some of this might surprise you." I opened the folder and spread out several bank statements. "For instance, did you know that Jovie has been using our joint accounts to fund your relationship?" He glanced at the statements. "What are you talking about?" "Hotel bills, restaurant charges, gifts, all paid for with money that legally belongs to both of us." I pointed to specific line items. "This dinner at Romano's, joint credit card, the weekend at the Marriott, joint checking account, those expensive gifts she's been giving you, also joint accounts." Baxter's face was getting red. "So what?" "So, in Maryland, that's called dissipation of marital assets. Courts take a dim view of spouses who use joint resources to fund extramarital affairs." I leaned back in the expensive chair. "When we get divorced, I can claim that money as part of the settlement, with interest." "You can't prove the money was used for that." "Can I?" I pulled out another set of documents. Credit card receipts with timestamps, hotel records, restaurant reservations, all cross-referenced with GPS data from both your car and Jovie's. I smiled. "I told you I'm thorough." Baxter stood up and walked to his window. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand the situation you're in. See, I've been doing some research on your business too. Lowell Development has 3 major projects in the works, all dependent on city planning approval and investor confidence." "What does that have to do with anything?" "Everything. Because when word gets out about your affair with a married woman, and when the details of that affair become public knowledge, your investors might start having second thoughts." I joined him at the window. Amazing view. Must have cost a fortune to lease this space. I hope your cash flow can handle the overhead if your projects get delayed. "You're threatening my business?" "I'm pointing out potential consequences. See, I've learned a lot about the development business lately. How it depends on relationships, reputation, trust. How a single scandal can derail years of work." I pulled out my phone and showed him a contact list. "I've been making some calls, talking to people in the industry, sharing information about recent market developments. Amazing how interested people are in hearing about the personal lives of prominent developers." Baxter grabbed for my phone, but I pulled it away. "Careful. Assault charges wouldn't look good on your record either." "What have you told people?" "Nothing but the truth. That you've been having an affair with a married woman. That you've been using her inside knowledge of the real estate market for your own benefit. That some of your recent property acquisitions might have involved conflicts of interest." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" Jovie had advanced knowledge of the Pemberton estate listing. She also knew about the Morrison property before it went on the market. Both properties that you subsequently made offers on. I put my phone away. Funny how information flows between lovers. Baxter slumped into his chair. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to disappear from my wife's life. Completely. No contact, no meetings, no business arrangements." "And if I don't?" "Then this folder gets copied and sent to every investor, city council member, and business journalist in the state, along with some photos that I don't think you'd want your mother to see." I stood up and straightened my jacket. "You've got 24 hours to make your decision. After that, the information becomes public." I left him sitting in his expensive chair, staring out at his expensive view, probably calculating how much it was all going to cost him. My phone rang as I walked to the elevator. Jovie's name appeared on the screen. "You need to stop this," she said as soon as I answered. "Stop what?" "You know what. The bank accounts, the threats, showing up at my office with those papers." "I haven't made any threats. I've simply been sharing factual information with interested parties." "Lauren says what you're doing constitutes harassment and intimidation." "Lauren says a lot of things, most of them wrong." The elevator arrived and I stepped inside. By the way, you might want to find a new attorney. Lauren has some interesting financial arrangements of her own that might compromise her ability to represent you effectively. What are you talking about? Ask her about the loan she took out last year to buy her new house. Specifically, ask her who co-signed for it. The line went quiet. I could almost hear Jovie's brain working. You've been investigating Lauren too? I've been investigating everyone who might have an interest in the outcome of our divorce. It's called due diligence. The elevator reached the ground floor. Amazing what you can learn when you start asking the right questions. I hung up and walked to my truck. Phase 3 was about to begin, and it was going to be the most interesting part yet. That evening, I was working late at the garage when Jace burst through the office door, looking agitated. "We've got company," he said. "Jovie and Pretty Boy just pulled into the lot. They look like they're planning something." I looked through the office window and saw Jovie's BMW and Baxter's Mercedes parked near the street. They were both sitting in Jovie's car, having what appeared to be an intense conversation. "How long have they been there?" "About 10 minutes. They keep looking at the building like they're casing the place." I pulled out my phone and opened the security camera app that Dee had installed last month. The cameras were motion activated and recorded everything to a cloud server. "Let them come," I said. "I'm curious to see what they have planned." 20 minutes later, they got out of the car and walked toward the garage. Jovie had a key to the building. I'd given it to her years ago for emergencies, but she'd apparently forgotten that we'd changed the locks last week after a break-in attempt. I watched on the security monitor as they tried the front door, then walked around to the side entrance. Baxter was carrying what looked like a crowbar. "Are they seriously about to break into our garage?" Jace asked. "Looks like it." I picked up my phone. "Dee, you monitoring the security system?" "Yep. Got them on camera right now." "Want me to call the police?" "Not yet. Let's see what they're planning first." On the monitor, I watched Baxter pry open the side door while Jovie kept watch. They slipped inside and immediately headed for my workshop area. "What are they looking for?" Jace wondered. "Probably evidence, documents, files, anything they can use against me in a divorce proceeding." I stood up and grabbed a flashlight. "Or maybe they're planning to destroy something important." We crept through the main garage area, using the parked cars for cover. I could hear them moving around in my workshop, opening drawers and cabinets. "Where does he keep his financial records?" I heard Jovie whisper. "Check the filing cabinet," Baxter replied, "and look for any computers or hard drives." I smiled in the darkness. They were looking for the evidence I'd gathered against them, not realizing that everything was stored digitally and backed up to multiple locations. "Got something," Baxter said. I heard the sound of papers rustling. "Looks like bank statements and tax records." "Take all of it. Lauren says we need to establish his financial situation before he can hide assets." I'd heard enough. I flicked on the workshop lights and stepped into view. "Evening, folks. Looking for something?" Jovie spun around, dropping a folder of papers. Baxter was holding my crowbar, the one he'd apparently used to break in, and for a moment looked like he might try to use it as a weapon. "Easy there, Baxter. That's a precision tool, not a baseball bat." "You can't prove we took anything," Jovie said quickly. "Can I?" I held up my phone, showing the security camera feed. High-definition video, motion-activated recording, automatically uploaded to the cloud. Amazing what technology can do these days. Jace appeared behind them, blocking their exit. "Funny thing about breaking and entering, it's still a crime even when you're married to one of the victims." "We weren't stealing anything," Baxter protested. "No? Then what do you call taking documents from a locked filing cabinet in a building you broke into?" I walked over and picked up the scattered papers. "These are copies, by the way. The originals are in a safe deposit box." "You set us up," Jovie accused. "I didn't set you up. I just gave you enough rope to hang yourselves." I looked at the crowbar in Baxter's hand. You might want to put that down. Assault with a weapon carries serious penalties. Baxter dropped the crowbar like it was on fire. Now then, I continued, let's discuss what happens next. You've just committed breaking and entering, attempted theft, and destruction of property. All captured on video, all admissible in court. What do you want? Jovie asked. The same thing I wanted yesterday, for both of you to disappear from my life, permanently. I pulled out my phone and showed them a text message I'd already composed. One button push, and this video goes to the police, the local newspaper, and every social media account in the city. You wouldn't, Baxter said. Try me. They looked at each other, probably trying to calculate their options. They didn't have many. There's another option, I said. You can walk away right now, end whatever this relationship is, and never contact each other again. Jovie files for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences. We split assets according to state law, and everyone moves on with their lives. And if we don't? Jovie asked. Then tomorrow morning, everyone in this city knows exactly what kind of people you are. The video gets released, the financial evidence becomes public record, and both of your reputations get destroyed. I walked over to a workbench and picked up a manila envelope. This contains copies of everything I've gathered over the past 2 weeks. Bank records, hotel receipts, photos, text messages, GPS tracking data, and now video evidence of tonight's little adventure. I held the envelope out to them. Take a look. See exactly what you're up against. Jovie opened the envelope with shaking hands. As she flipped through the contents, her face went progressively paler. This is blackmail, she whispered. No, this is documentation. Everything in there is factual, verifiable, and legally obtained. I smiled. Well, except for tonight's video, that was just a bonus. Baxter looked over her shoulder at the documents. You've been planning this for weeks. Months, actually. See, I started getting suspicious back in February when you first showed up at Jovie's office. Something about your whole operation seemed off. I leaned against the workbench. So I started paying attention, asking questions, following up on inconsistencies. You hired a private investigator, Jovie accused. Didn't need to. Amazing what you can learn when you apply basic mechanical troubleshooting to human behavior. When something's not working right, you trace the problem back to its source. I pointed to a section of the financial records. The source, in this case, was money. Specifically, money being spent on things that didn't make sense. Hotel bills when you were supposedly working late. Restaurant charges when you claimed to be at home. Gift purchases that never appeared in our house. You've been watching us for months, Baxter said. I've been protecting my interests. There's a difference. I walked over to the security monitor and replayed the video of their break-in. Though I have to admit, tonight exceeded my expectations. I figured you might try something desperate, but actual breaking and entering? That's felony territory. Jovie was still staring at the documents. What do you want from us? I want you to understand that this game is over. You lost. The only question now is how much damage you're willing to accept. I picked up the crowbar Baxter had dropped. See, when I rebuild an engine, I don't just fix the obvious problems. I tear the whole thing down, inspect every component, replace anything that's worn or damaged. Then I rebuild it properly, so it runs better than it did originally. What's your point? Baxter asked. My point is that my marriage is beyond repair. Too much damage, too many worn parts. So I'm tearing it down completely and rebuilding my life without the defective components. I looked directly at both of them. That means both of you disappear, permanently. No contact, no business relationships, no chance encounters at social events. You become strangers to me and to each other. And if we agree? Jovie asked. Then the divorce proceeds quietly and efficiently. I keep the evidence private. You both maintain whatever's left of your reputations, and everyone moves on. And if we don't agree? I smiled and held up my phone. Then tomorrow's newspaper gets very interesting reading material. They huddled together for a whispered conversation. I couldn't hear the details, but their body language told the story. Jovie was scared. Baxter was angry, and both of them were realizing they didn't have any good options. Finally, Jovie looked up. "We agree." "Excellent. Then let's make it official." I pulled out a document I'd prepared earlier. "This is a separation agreement. It outlines the terms we just discussed, including the no-contact provisions." Jovie read through the document quickly. "This gives you almost everything. This gives me what I'm legally entitled to, plus compensation for the marital assets you dissipated during your affair." I handed her a pen. "Sign it, or the deal's off." She signed the document with a shaking hand. Baxter looked like he wanted to say something, but apparently thought better of it. "Wonderful. Now get out of my garage before I change my mind about calling the police." They left quickly, not bothering to clean up the mess they'd made. I watched through the window as they drove away in separate cars, probably heading off to figure out how to explain this disaster to their respective attorneys. Jace appeared beside me. "Think they'll honor the agreement?" "Doesn't matter. I've got enough evidence to bury both of them if they try anything else." I pulled out my phone and called Dee. "You get all that on video?" "Every second. High definition, perfect audio, automatically backed up to 3 different servers." "Good. Send copies to my attorney and keep the originals secure." "You got it. Anything else?" "Yeah. Tomorrow morning, I want you to start monitoring their communications. Phone records, email, social media. If they so much as send each other a text message, I want to know about it." I hung up and looked around my workshop. They'd made a mess, but nothing was actually damaged. Just like their affair. Lots of drama and chaos, but ultimately no lasting impact on the things that really mattered. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over." I showed the message to Jace. "Looks like someone's not ready to accept defeat." "Baxter?" "Probably. He strikes me as the type who doesn't handle losing very well." I typed back, "Yes, it is. Check your email." A minute later, I sent him a copy of the security video from tonight, along with a note. "Next time you want to threaten someone, make sure they don't have evidence of your criminal activities." My phone stayed quiet after that. 3 days later, I was at the garage when Dee called with urgent news. "They're planning something big," he said without preamble. "I've been monitoring their communications like you asked, and they've been busy." "What kind of busy?" "The kind where they've hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on you, and they're planning to file a restraining order based on fabricated harassment claims." I set down the wrench I'd been using and gave Dee my full attention. "Explain." "Jovie's been working with Lauren to build a case that you've been stalking and threatening them. They've got fake witness statements, doctored photos, even a supposed recording of you making threats." "How do you know this?" "Because I've been monitoring Lauren's email, and she's been surprisingly careless about digital security." "Want me to send you copies of everything?" "Do it. And Dee, start recording all of our conversations from now on. If they want to play dirty, we need to be prepared." 20 minutes later, I was reading through Lauren's emails and feeling a cold anger settle in my chest. They weren't just planning to file for divorce, they were planning to destroy me completely. False restraining orders, fabricated evidence, even claims that I'd been physically abusive. The plan was sophisticated and vicious. They would file the restraining order on Monday morning, freeze all of our joint assets, and then use the legal proceedings to force me out of my own business and home. Lauren had even found a judge who might be sympathetic to their version of events. I called Jace immediately. "We need to move up our timeline." "What timeline?" "The one where we end this permanently. They're not planning to honor our agreement. They're planning to destroy me." "What do you need?" "Meet me at the garage in an hour, and call Mrs. Tisdale. Tell her it's time for that favor she owes me." Mrs. Tisdale was 73 years old and had lived in our neighborhood for 40 years. She knew everyone, heard everything, and had a network of gossip that rivaled any intelligence agency. More importantly, she'd never liked Jovie and had been waiting for years for an excuse to cause trouble. When Jace and I arrived at the garage, Mrs. Tisdale was already waiting in the parking lot, sitting in her ancient Buick with the engine running. "Boys," she said as she got out of the car, "I hear you need some help with a problem." "Yes, ma'am. But what I'm about to ask you to do might get a little messy." She smiled, and for a moment I could see the sharp intelligence that had made her a successful businesswoman before she retired. "Honey, I've been causing trouble since before you were born. What do you need?" I handed her a folder containing copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. "I need this information to become public knowledge, not through official channels, through the kind of informal communication network that you specialize in." She flipped through the documents, her eyebrows rising higher with each page. "My goodness, your wife has been a busy little bee, hasn't she?" "Very busy, and now she's planning to make things even busier for me." "What's your timeline?" 24 hours. By tomorrow evening, I want everyone in this city to know exactly what kind of people Jovie and Baxter really are." Mrs. Tisdale smiled again, and this time it looked predatory. "Consider it done." She left with the folder, and I turned to Jace. "Phase 1 is in motion. Now we need to set up Phase 2. Which is? We're going to give them exactly what they want, a public confrontation, except it's going to happen on our terms, in our location, with our audience." I pulled out my phone and sent a text to both Jovie and Baxter. "Meet me at the old Morrison factory tonight at 10 p.m. Come alone, or the videos go public tomorrow." The Morrison factory was an abandoned industrial building on the edge of town. It had been empty for 5 years, ever since the manufacturing company that owned it went bankrupt. The building was structurally sound but isolated, making it perfect for a private conversation. "You sure about this location?" Jace asked. "Positive. Dee's already set up cameras throughout the building, and we've got multiple exit routes planned. Plus, the acoustics are perfect for recording conversations." My phone buzzed with replies from both Jovie and Baxter, agreeing to the meeting. They probably thought they were walking into a trap, which was exactly what I wanted them to think. At 9:30, Jace and I arrived at the factory and did a final check of our preparations. Dee had installed wireless cameras in every room, all connected to a live streaming setup that would broadcast everything to multiple platforms simultaneously. "You sure about going public with this?" Jace asked. They forced my hand. "If they want to play dirty, we'll play dirty. But we'll do it in the open, where everyone can see exactly what's happening." At exactly 10 o'clock, Jovie and Baxter arrived together, parking near the main entrance. They looked nervous but determined, probably thinking they were about to turn the tables on me. I met them in the main factory floor, a cavernous space filled with abandoned machinery and broken windows. The lighting was dim but adequate, and the cameras were positioned to capture everything. "You came," I said as they walked toward me. "We're here to end this," Jovie replied. "Whatever sick game you're playing, it stops tonight." "Game? You think this is a game?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You two have been lying, cheating, and stealing for months. You broke into my business, tried to frame me for harassment, and now you're planning to destroy my reputation with fabricated evidence." "You can't prove any of that," Baxter said. "Can't I?" I held up my phone, showing them the streaming app. "Say hello to the internet. We're broadcasting live to about 50 people right now, and that number's growing every minute." Their faces went white as they realized what was happening. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, addressing the camera, "meet my wife Jovie and her boyfriend Baxter. They're here tonight to explain why they think adultery, theft, and filing false police reports are acceptable behavior." "You can't do this," Jovie protested. "I can, and I am. See, you two made a fundamental mistake. You thought you were smarter than everyone else, that you could manipulate the system and get away with destroying someone's life." I walked closer to them. "But you forgot something important." "What's that?" Baxter asked. "I'm not everyone else. I'm someone who knows how to fight back." I pulled out a tablet and showed them the screen. It displayed a social media feed that was exploding with comments and shares. Mrs. Tisdale had done her work well. The story of their affair was spreading through the city like wildfire. As of about an hour ago, everyone in town knows about your relationship. The hotels you visited, the money you spent, the lies you told, it's all public knowledge now. Jovie was staring at the tablet in horror. You destroyed us. No, you destroyed yourselves. I just documented the process. I looked directly into the camera. For those just joining us, here's a quick summary of tonight's entertainment. I spent the next 10 minutes laying out the entire story, complete with evidence and documentation. The viewer count climbed steadily as people shared the stream with their friends and family. This is insane, Baxter said. You can't ruin our lives over a relationship that doesn't affect you anymore. Doesn't affect me? You stole from me, lied to me, and tried to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. How does that not affect me? We never stole anything. Really? I pulled out a folder of bank statements. Joint account funds used for hotel rooms, restaurant bills, gifts for your boyfriend. In Maryland, that's called dissipation of marital assets. It's theft, legally speaking. The viewer count had climbed to over 200 people. The chat was moving too fast to read, but I could see that the sentiment was overwhelmingly supportive. And then there's the breaking and entering, I continued, captured on high-definition video, with audio of you discussing your plans to steal documents and destroy evidence. I played a clip from the security footage on the tablet, showing them breaking into my garage. The chat exploded with angry comments. You set us up, Jovie accused. I gave you the opportunity to make better choices. You chose poorly. I looked at the camera again. And, speaking of poor choices, let's talk about the fake harassment charges they were planning to file. I read excerpts from Lauren's emails describing their plan to fabricate evidence and file false police reports. The viewer count was approaching 500 now, and I could see that local news outlets were starting to pick up the story. Stop, Jovie pleaded. Please, just stop. We'll do whatever you want. What I want is for people to see who you really are. No more lies, no more manipulation, no more hiding behind lawyers and fake evidence. Baxter tried to grab my phone, but I stepped back easily. Careful, Baxter. Assault is a crime, and we've got about 600 witnesses watching right now. You've made your point, he said desperately. We get it. You win. Just stop the broadcast. Win? You think this is about winning? I shook my head. This is about consequences. For months, you two have been making choices that hurt other people. Tonight, you get to experience what that feels like. The viewer count hit 800. I could see that the story was trending on multiple social media platforms, and local news stations were starting to report on it. Your reputations are finished, I told them. Your careers are over. Your relationship is public knowledge, and everyone knows exactly how it started and what you did to maintain it. Jovie was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. We're sorry. We're both sorry. It was a mistake. A mistake? You planned this for months. You coordinated your lies, covered your tracks, and tried to destroy me when I found out. I looked at the camera one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the consequences of thinking you're smarter than everyone else. I ended the broadcast and put my phone away. The factory was quiet, except for the sound of Jovie's sobbing. It's over, I said simply. Your affair is public knowledge, your reputations are destroyed, and everyone knows exactly what kind of people you are. The divorce will proceed according to state law, and I never want to see either of you again. They left without another word, walking out into a world where everyone knew their secrets. I watched them go, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and exhaustion. Jace appeared beside me. Think they learned their lesson? Doesn't matter. They can't hurt me anymore, and they can't hurt anyone else the same way. I looked around the empty factory. Sometimes the only way to fix something is to tear it down completely and start over. My phone buzzed with a text from D. Stream hit over 1,000 viewers. Story's been picked up by 3 news stations and is trending on social media. I'd say mission accomplished. I typed back, "Thanks for everything. Send the final bill to my attorney." As we walked out of the factory, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The game was over, the truth was public, and justice had been served. Not through the courts or the police, but through the one thing that people like Jovie and Baxter feared most: public accountability. They'd spent months thinking they were clever enough to manipulate everyone around them. Tonight, they learned that some people don't just get mad, they get even. And when they do, they make sure the whole world is watching. The last thing I heard as we drove away was the sound of sirens in the distance. Probably reporters heading to the factory, looking for follow-up interviews. They wouldn't find anyone there, but they'd find plenty of people willing to talk about what they'd just witnessed online. By tomorrow morning, Jovie and Baxter would be the most famous couple in the city, for all the wrong reasons. Their affair would be public knowledge, their reputations would be in ruins, and their careers would be effectively over. I'd rebuilt engines that were less damaged than what was left of their lives. But unlike engines, some things can't be repaired once they're completely broken. They'd have to live with the consequences of their choices, just like I'd had to live with the consequences of trusting them. The difference was that I'd learned from the experience and come out stronger. They'd just learned that actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are public, permanent, and perfectly justified. As I drove home to start my new life, I couldn't help but smile. Revenge, it turned out, was indeed best served live, and cold. Very, very cold.